Good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Lockerbie. Joining me is Rebekah McAleese, another administrator of our page, and we're here with our guest, Saul Polish, from Newcastle County, Delaware. And Saul, the last time we spoke, you had brought to our attention the fact that Newcastle County, the executive director, signed a proclamation declaring emergency dispatchers within the county as first responders. And most recently, a couple of days ago, you reached out to share the great news that your state has passed a law to include all of the dispatchers. And if you would share with us how that came about and what you saw during the process, what you learned during the process.
Well, thank you, James. So about 2 years ago, I spoke with the governor briefly at our state council meeting, and we were doing actually elections for our state council representatives for our union. And I spoke to him briefly about it, and he was like, put me in touch with his aide, and we went back and forth a couple of times with the aide trying to get together. The governor did call me at one point personally to see, what exactly I was looking for and what he could do. So at that point, we were talking about whether or not it would be, what the best route would be, whether he would just, do a proclamation for the state or sign into law. And it seemed like, having a legislative bill would hold a lot more weight for it. So it's been about a 2-year process. We went back and forth. I had some cohorts, a representative from the State Police Dispatch, also a representative from the City of Dover Dispatch, who are partners in this. All the while, we were all trying to lobby different representatives to see if we could get somebody on board. We had somebody on board. Originally, they started the process. There's some things that happened with that particular representative, and they fell out of it. And then it became now, again, a lobbying game. I was making a push a lot for my local county representatives to try and get me some help on the state level. And we reached out to quite a few different state representatives. Of course, everybody's like, yeah, sure, absolutely, no problem. We're on board. And then when you call them to task, it's like, hey, where you been? I sent you this documentation. Did you get a chance to read it? Then time goes by, it becomes election time, and they got other things to do. The problem with this bill is it's not a sexy bill. It really doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't do anything for their constituents other than the few thousand 911 operators that we have across for the state, which even with them, it's not really a big sexy thing because there's no money involved, there's no benefits involved, immediate benefits involved. But some of the big things that we're looking at is like line of duty death. Nobody ever thinks about a 911 dispatcher dying in the line of duty, but the jobs that we have, are very sedentary. You sit a lot. We've been lucky that in my center we have consoles that move up and down, so we have the chance to stand and change our positions and whatnot. But the biggest thing that's come now out of this, there's this mental health aspect of it. That mental health is a really big thing, and it's the population has changed over the years. I've been now going on my 29th year working in the 911 center, and the mentality of the people that work there have changed a lot over the years, and people have become more susceptible to some of the mental aspects of it. So that's where this bill is really helpful. And being a first responder, there's more help out there for us in that. So it was interesting because we finally got a senator on board. He was like, all right, this is a no-brainer. By the time we got to him, it was the like July, August of last year. We talked about it. We went back and forth, and I have to say that I have some representatives from the county police division. They're in the union, state representative union person that are good friends of mine that really helped me out with this a lot too. Um, so, election time comes around, and that's what they're focusing on. And, so he gives it to his aide and he gives it to the lawyer to, to see what kind of, what they can do. I brought in some language from some other states that did the same thing. And it really was like, it was really basic. I mean, like it was a matter of like 3 sentences, I think, is really what the bill came down to. But, then the first of the year comes in, and then, the house goes out, so they're on break and whatnot. So that's really where some of the slow points are, is because now you're dealing with the politicians and what goes on in their daily lives, and not having the General Assembly in, so they really can't do anything. But finally, when the General Assembly came back, it went before the Senate, because it was a Senate bill. I went down to the Senate chambers, and when they brought it up, like I said, the other people that were involved, Brandy Hall from the Delaware State Police and Matt Carey from the city of Dover, we were all showed up for the hearing, and we got a chance to speak. And it really was like, there was no reason for us to even be there, because everybody was like overwhelmed. Like, I can't believe this is even a thing that we're even talking about this today. Like, they just had no idea. They're like, we just assumed. And, that's
Exactly.
the thing.
That is a huge thing. So, not to kind of cut you off, but just to kind of add to the conversation, or, a couple things I pick up on, and Rebekah, join in with me of some of your observations, is the fact that you were able to get some state reps from your union and I guess I'm assuming other unions to help you
Yes.
with this. You're talking about, you start with one rep, and then, either he doesn't get reelected, or there's some issues that he has to bail out. So now you got to kind of start the process over again, in attempting to find someone else to carry the torch. Another great thing you just mentioned is the fact that how many of our state legislators, our county, representatives, even our congressmen and women, automatically assume that just that we are, and that's that education. That's why we have to educate them that we're not. And as simple as this bill seems to be, it's very important, because it changes their attitude and it changes their perspective, and they realize that, wait a minute, every time we do something for police and fire, we got to remember about the dispatchers, because maybe they aren't included in this, and maybe they ought to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, so that passed unanimously. So then the next step is the House, and we wait about, a month or 2 months, before it goes before the House. And same process again, go in, before the committee. The chair of the committee that it was presented to in the House is a former Newcastle County police officer who I know very well. I mean, I worked with him for, almost 20 years. So that was a no-brainer, because he's actually a local representative as well. So, I mean, that was a no-brainer to him. So, when I presented to them, they kind of felt the same way, and it went through the House and passed unanimously at the House. And then it was just like a waiting game at that point. It was like, I subscribed to the governor's newsletter, and like every, couple weeks or month or something, I see the newsletter come out, and I see, he's done this, he signed off on this, he, had a big gathering of
Yours is
people
still waiting.
yeah. And I'm like, well, where's that? So, I'm like, I'm not trying to harass my senator, like, hey, but I'm like, hey, have you heard anything? And he's like, I'll get back to you. And, I'm thankful for the help that Senator Manzanzovis, helped us out with this. But, it's like, I don't want to harass the guy either. So finally, all of a sudden, like, it was like he sent me an email last week, and he was like, hey, the governor signed the bill. And I'm like, so I'm going on the legislative page, and I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see like the official, notification on there. And then all of a sudden I get the notification, because I subscribe to it, that, the bill tracker. And all of a sudden I get this notification that, like, I think it was on the 24th or the 25th, whenever I posted on the Facebook page, that on the 21st it had become law. And I'm like, it felt good, because we finally got to this point. But I was felt a little dejected, because it was like, like not that I'm not doing this for me because I'm at the end of my career, but like I really kind of wanted a little bit of fanfare, just
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You know, you wanted the
because it's a
time
big
next to the
deal.
desk.
I mean, and again, I don't need it for me. It's not a big deal for me, but it would have been nice that, like, listen, there's people behind the scenes that never get any credit for the job that they do because they're not out there on the front line, and they're dealing with this stress and this mental aspect of it because they never have any closure to this. And this is what we want. We want somebody to recognize the job that we do, and that's really all we want. So here we are. Yeah, well, again, 2 years after we started this, I can't say that it probably wasn't a big push. The fact that the county executive did do that proclamation, so that was a good starting point. In the last 10 years, there's two things that I wanted to do. I served as the president of our union, so I want to do some good for our membership. And two things that I wanted to do before I retired was to be able to get to a 25-year retirement for our future members, which we now have for uh, part of our membership that was hired after a certain date. And now we have this in the state of Delaware, and hopefully, this is going to help us still push for a federal side of it.
That's awesome, dude. Rebecca, would you like to ask Saul a question, or you have any observations throughout?
I think the biggest thing is just that I picked up on all this is just your perseverance. So many people get frustrated when it doesn't happen like within the same legislative period, and it flows from one election time frame to the next election time frame. And I mean, and as we've seen on the federal one, we're on our third legislative cycle, fourth legislative cycle. I kind of lost track. And, so it just goes to show we've got to just stay diligent and just keep those lines of communication open with our representatives. And, and just keep working at it. I mean, it's going to come. I mean, now Delaware makes what, 21st state?
21st state is how, according to the stance we've taken so far, it's 21st. And I have to agree with Rebecca 100% on her comment there, and then just add what you were kind of alluding to earlier, that trying to find that balance between not harassing the people that you're asking to help you, but also not like letting it go, because if you let it go, then it gets forgotten, and the next thing you know, the time has run out. I mean, I faced that here in New Jersey. Had I not reached out to the chairwoman of the committee in the Senate chamber, it probably wouldn't have made it onto the agenda, and then that would have been over. We would have had to start all over again. So I did reach out, and then I got the notification like the night before the meeting. Like I guess Friday I noticed it, and it was scheduled for the meeting on Monday. So I went to the local New Jersey NINA conference, the opening ceremony, and then I got my car and drove 2 hours to Trenton to testify. And then, it's funny because it actually got voted in and passed on the last legislative day of that session. And then the governor signed it into the beginning of the next year, within that time period that he was allowed to do it, that it was still legitimate. So, again, not to harass, but to continue to keep in communication with the people you're trying to work with throughout your process, so that you don't miss deadlines, and so that it doesn't get forgotten about. And 2 years is a long time, and in those 2 years we've had New Jersey, Alabama, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Washington, Kansas, New Hampshire, all went through the process, and we would love to have members from those states who were part of the process to come and do what you're doing, Saul, sharing your experience, sharing that knowledge that you learned by going through the process yourself, so that, again, we can encourage other people out there, other our colleagues throughout the country, to take that step, to that first step, whether it be at the county level with the county proclamation, like you guys did in Newcastle, or if it's to find an ally in the state house and start from scratch with a bill right off the bat. I mean, that's what happened in New Jersey. Again, I was discovered by the author of the bill, and that I was in support of it, and he reached out to me. So there's many different ways that we've seen it go through. And your bill, yeah, it's not the sexiest, but it is helpful because part of that mental health services is part of that. And I don't necessarily think that before people were stronger and better and it didn't need it. I think it was needed, but no one wanted to admit it. And they either walked away damaged or retired and did suffer, probably the rest of their lives, where now, through your efforts, hopefully the individuals that are having, trouble or, experiencing some difficulties from a either the job overall or a particular call, they'll use these services now and get proper help so that they can stay in the game or retire healthy. So I commend you for getting that part of the bill, getting that as part of the bill. More recently in Alabama and Washington, their states didn't have a 911 basic training certification. So they use that as an avenue to get first responder status. Was like, hey, we want to be first responders, but we also, we don't have a basic standard training level. Every dispatcher in the state of the within the state has been trained at different levels. And now we want to be able to say, like, in the state of Alabama, state of Washington, you get hired, this is what you need to know before you can start picking up a 911 call. So there's that benefit that was included in their state. So there's many different ways that you can approach this. But again, the goal is to improve the industry, to improve how people view our profession, and improve how we view ourselves. And I think that benefits everyone when we are in a better place, in a healthier place, and we respect ourselves and we respect the job and the people of authority who decide where money goes, that they put the proper level of respect in our positions, and so that we get the things that we need to get to do the job the right way.
Yeah, and I was going to hit on the fact that when New Jersey got their status, that was like really was my push at that point, because I actually, took some of your documentation from your legislation as well, and that was part of my packet that went to the senators to try and get them like, listen, we got New Jersey. That's we're not talking about like big huge states that are making these push. I'm like, we got New Jersey. This is our neighbor. So, I was kind of I really wanted to be like Delaware's the first state. I was trying to get the first state in the tri-state area to get it done, and, looking back to, last year, my goal was April, trying to get it, passed by April, because I thought what bigger fanfare than he could have is like, so when we got it on the county side, it was done during National Telecommunicators Week. That was one of the big easy things for him to come out, the county executive to come out and say, this is what I'm doing for my people on National Telecommunicators Week. And I was thinking, listen, in July, August, we got the senator on board. He's got the documentation. It's gonna run through his lawyers. The bill's gonna get done. Come January 1st, we're gonna get into general session. And why can't we have it done in 4 months before general session goes out? And that came and went, and I was like, like everybody celebrated National Telecommunicators Week, all through the state. Everything was like, hey, here we are, just trying to get first responder status. It's be nice if you could, it was like the big birthday gift that you want, like when you graduate or something. But it's interesting, so I mean, I've been at this probably right around 10 years. Because I actually met Norma Torres back in 2015 when I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico for an ASME conference. and Norma was the guest speaker there. And that's when she was like, starting to make her push. And I talked to her, and it just seemed crazy to me. I was like, we have someone who did this job and is now in a position of authority. And I'm like, I don't understand why we're so stymied on this, 12 years later, when this whole thing started. It just doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah,
again, like, it's not the sexy thing, it's not what people want, but like it doesn't cost anything,
Right.
until somebody needs something. And to hit on the mental health aspect of it, when we go back 30 years, I don't know that, that I'm not trying to say that like we didn't suffer through these problems, but we didn't have these outlets for it. And I have to commend my county for the HR for the work that they do, because every county has like an EAP program, but
mhm.
we know that that EAP program doesn't work for us because we are a different kind of people. And we actually are now partnered with an organization called Safe Call Now. And the people that, when you call them, the people that are on the other end are police, they are EMS,
They've done
they
it.
are
They've walked the
911.
walk.
They know the job. And we actually have, I have a friend of mine who was dealing with some heavy issues, and he finally got to his breaking point and he reached out to them. And it's 2 years later and he is just crushing it
That's
with the help
awesome.
of them. So I mean, it's been a great resource that we've had having them on board. And like I said, the mental aspect of it is, if you show weakness, if you show that you need help, you're weak. And we have to get past that stigma, and the stigma that, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, just don't stay there, which is what Tracy uh Eldridge has her little add-on to that statement, is just, not to stay there, to seek improvement and to get improvement, which I 100% agree. I mean, that's, the reason why I got into advocating of this was because I was in my own rut, and it's helped pull me out of my rut, which is why I'm so motivated by this. And I commend you for, again, not giving up, like Rebekah mentioned, and staying through the process until you got to the point where you now have this law, which is what this is all about, is to celebrate that, and give you and your colleagues from the other agencies your due accolades, because you guys did a lot of work to make this happen, and so congratulations.
Yeah. And again,
Yes.
like, it really wasn't like, the hardest work was just doing some research to pull some of the other documentation from the other states together, and just to express to the senator what exactly we were looking for. And the rest of it was, it was just, political nonsense,
Mumbo
really. I
jumbo.
mean, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
Rebekah has done an amazing job with the map detailing when each state has it, and then the bill numbers. And we have in our file section, and she's been really at the forefront of keeping that up to date, and finding the different laws and putting them in PDF and saving them in our file section. So, if you're out there watching this, please take a look in those files, and review, like Saul's saying, excuse me, take time to review those, and use them as your guide to creating your own, or even sharing them with your contacts, so that their staff can, like, why reinvent the wheel?
Right. I mean, and like you said, why we reinvented the wheel. We're 21 states into this, and we've got probably half a dozen that have a bill, somewhere in the process, whether they're in the early stages, mid stages, or nearing the end. And we've got a lot of that documentation already out there and saved in the file section. So, take a look at it, get the information. I mean, James and I are always willing to help answer questions. And I mean, I'm here in Wisconsin, we're still working on it. And I just recently started talking with a neighboring county, and who's working with their sheriff, and he seems to be supportive. He wants some answers to a couple of questions before he really starts pushing this forward, and stuff. And so the person at that county, that works at that county, reached out to me, and I've gotten a couple of other people that are here in Wisconsin, you know, working on answering some of those questions as well, so that we get kind of a good mix of, you know, what we all think and stuff to help this sheriff, you know, and hopefully we can get the sheriff on our board. And
That would be a
you said
huge
you work
get.
with your union. I'm working with my union here in our area. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing.
No, that's awesome. And then Saul, I like what you're talking about, peer pressure. Point to the states surrounding you that have done it. You know, if you're out near California, you know, you can point to them. They were the second state to do it. You know, if you're down near Texas, they were the first. You know, there's so many states now that have done it. We have one or two in each like region of the country that you can point to the south. You can point to your west. You can point to the north. You know, you can point to your south. You pick a dial on the compass and take a look and say to your, you know, your state rep or your county rep, you know, look over here in Colorado. They have counties that have done it. You could do it at the county level. You know, to go to your state rep and say, look, you know, our state to the east, they've done it. Let's do it. Why aren't we doing this? So I appreciate that all, you know, as well. This is great, man. I just, because again, our mission is to see everyone through this and to see it. You know, you mentioned Representative Torres. She hasn't given up on it. She wrote a letter at the end of the last congressional session to the director of the Office of Management and Budget, pretty much asking her to take it upon herself, not waiting for the law to be passed, but to take it upon herself to open up a review of the classification and have her department kind of do the work necessary to do it themselves. Representative Torres and Brian Fitzpatrick, the two co-sponsors of the 9/11 Saves Act, they have joined with Representative Robin Kelly from Illinois to introduce or reintroduce her Protect 911 legislation, which is more in line with Saul, what you just did in Delaware, where you're addressing the mental health aspect of our career, of our profession. So one of the things that was
level and Nina as well, you know, making this push on the federal level. But, you know, we have these local chapters that need to be making this push as well.
I agree, but since I'm a member of both, I would say it's kind of on the members if
yes,
you know, and so we're like those organizations are kind of doing it by the actions through our actions. Yeah, I guess is how I'm gonna say that, because I mean that's just a reality, because you know I've been banging the drum.
I think we're just trying to help the people that we work with and the future of this you know,
Exactly.
this career.
It's for the next generation of dispatchers,
Yes.
because we're at the cusp of retiring, hopefully. So we are, and we're doing it for the communities, because again, if the people in charge had the right mindset, you know, things could get done. Like, why have we been begging for 15 years for $15 billion to take a 911 system that's still utilizing 1968 technology in, you know, for the most part, when we have people walking around with computers on their hips? We need the 911 system to be able to talk to those phones, those mini computers, and so that we can do the best job that we can do. And we can't do that if we're using 1968 technology.
Yep, absolutely.
So as we're fighting for this, and that's something that I really want to share with our viewers right now, is we're not fighting for ourselves, and don't make it that, because that's, you know, that's definitely not how it's going to work. You make the fight about the fact that we're trying to improve the system for everyone, and then our plight will be raised as these issues are addressed properly. So you make the fight about the fact that we're trying to improve our profession because we're trying to provide a better service to our communities. You know, and that's, I think that's the winning argument, and I think a lot of us have approached it that way, and I think that's how come we've been successful. I think that explains our success. I'll word it that way. So
Yeah, and it gives us, you know, a pride in the job that we do. That's
absolutely.
key, you know.
Yep.
And that's
You know,
what
you
keeps
can't-
you
you-
in
you
a
don't-
good
yeah.
frame of mind.
Yeah, you don't come into this career, this line of work because it's a job, it's a paycheck, because you're never going to survive if that's your attitude. You know, you have to actually live and breathe and bleed this kind of work.
Just like our counterparts on the other side of the radio.
Yep.
Our city administrators, the county, state, federal government representatives. That's the missing link right there. That's the missing piece. Is just like our counterparts out in the field. We live and breathe being a first responder, providing a protective service to our communities. And with that, we have to go because we're going to be pushed out by Zoom. So, Saul, your colleagues and you, congratulations! Tip of the hat.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
to our viewers, get up and get going.